In this video, we'll discuss the features on Amanda Knox's face that point to why she wasn't received well by the public, her attention-seeking tendencies, and her potential need for high-intensity exercise. Enjoy. Hey everybody, so today we are reading Amanda Knox. If you're not familiar with her, she was acquitted some years back, but did spend, I think, 4 years in an Italian prison for the murder of Meredith Kircher, I think is how you say her name. Maybe it's Kircher. Forgive me if I'm getting the name wrong. But she was not received well by the public. Again, she was acquitted, but there's a Netflix documentary about her. I watched it, and in watching it, I thought I want to read her face because there are some markers on her face that I think fit right into why she was not received well by the public, and some conflicts, some things about her face that just make a certain amount of sense that this very unfortunate thing found her. And whether she did it or not, I'm not sure, but I'm going to speak to a couple key points regarding that. So first and foremost, if you're new to the channel and you haven't watched a face reading video, go watch the video right up here in the corner. That is my 5-minute crash course face reading video that will give you some terminology and give you a basic understanding of face reading. So it's pretty important. If you haven't watched that, pause this, go watch that. But let's get into her face. So first and foremost, the things I saw right away is she's got the markers for attention. So when we see these marks, it means a person wants attention, needs attention, or digests attention well. It means they can take it in and it doesn't really bother them. And they are fundamentally sort of equipped to handle attention. So where we see this are the dimples. So the dimples are also in face reading seen as a marker for persuasion and charisma. It's sort of a mark for being able to twinkle your way out of certain things. So she's got that. She also has the cleft chin right here, okay, what they call the butt chin. So that is a big one. That's a real big marker for attention. And again, just because a person has that doesn't mean they want attention, but it's one of the key markers. You can have other features on the face relative to that feature that can drown out that energetic marker. So just because you have it, you might have other features that really temper that. But when you see it, it's also like, hey, there's a very high likelihood this person wants attention or will find themselves in the limelight, whether they want to be or not. So she has all of these markers. Now, she's also got a sizable amount of wood energy. Wood energy houses the liver and gallbladder, and the liver regulates anger and irritability. So people with a lot of wood energetics can feel aggressive. Their look can seem sort of intense, sort of that they have the capacity for anger, for some kind of hostility. They have that look. So where do we see this? The jawline is a big wood feature. So the more dominant the jaw, the more meaty that is, we're going to see strong wood energetics. The eyebrows, the thickness, they're pretty full on her. The other area is the whites of the eyes. So again, if we think about the liver system and the wood energetics digesting anger and hostility, if I were to look at you like this and have a conversation, most people would think there's something up. Homeboy might have an aggressive something or other going on inside of him. That is not a welcoming look. So when we see the whites of the eyes, that means the liver energy is pretty dominant and pretty strong. And as mammals in the animal kingdom, and we all subconsciously face read, if we meet someone who's got big eyes like this and who's talking to us with that level of intensity, there is something unnerving about that, and people are usually not going to trust us. So because of that, those big whites of the eyes, that gives her a certain amount of intensity, which makes her look a little crazy, just the way it goes. Now, the other marker is with these fire features, okay, these dimples and these wrinkles. Whenever we see dimples and we see wrinkles, we can think of this sort of like sparkling points of energy. So fire sparkles, right? Fire is shimmery and it moves and it has pointy tips, and fire people stand around. They look at fire. People are drawn to fire, right? A moth to a flame. There's a gravitas to fire. People want to be around it. And so she has these fire features, and she's got the Cupid's bow. She's got a pretty full mouth, but she's got the points at the top. So she has some fire features, but she doesn't have the thing that seals the fire energy in, which is the lines right here, the joy lines. When these lines don't show up and you have some other fire features, it's almost like an incomplete fire energetic. This is the one you want. You want to have those ideally, because the marks around the eyes are what allow people to trust you. As people look at you, and again, we all instinctively face read to some degree. People, if they don't see these lines, it says in face reading theory that people have difficulty trusting you. So for instance, when I smile, many of you see my content, when I smile, these marks light up naturally. Now, if I were to smile at all of you like this without my eyes and we're trying to hold a conversation, it's very obtuse looking. It's very weird. If I walked into the supermarket and was like, hey, everybody, how's it going? People would think I was weird because my eyes aren't moving. So subconsciously, when we don't see a lot of eye movement around here, people can be a bit apprehensive. People might perceive you as aloof or stay away from you because of this. So she has these markers for attention. She's got some fire, but it doesn't show up here. And, we know for a fact she was not trusted. If you look at the YouTube comments and you look at what people were saying about her, she's a narcissist, she's lying, I don't trust her, something in my gut says she's not telling the truth. So there's a lot there. Now, the other thing to think about here is her public persona, her natural face, and her inner persona. This was very interesting. So the public persona is how the world sees us. This is how people who meet us for the first time are going to take us in. If you look at her public persona, I hate to break it to you, that person looks crazy. They just do. Kind of wild-eyed and very intense and looks like potentially she might mean you harm. So in breaking her face down, I thought there's a reason she wasn't received well by the public. If you think face reading theory has any kind of weight, this holds true. That public persona does not look welcoming. It looks very intense and maybe even potentially dangerous. Now, what's even more interesting about her face on the inner persona side, and this has never happened before. This is a first for me, so this surprised me. If you look at her natural face, if you look down the center of her face, you don't see any vertical lines. There's nothing there. But when I mirrored her left side of her face and put that inner persona, you can see this faint shadow that shows up right down the center of the face, and then it sort of connects to this cleft chin, giving this implied shadow line up and down the center of her face. So it's almost like a subconscious or hidden shadow. Like I can't see it unless I mirror the images, which is very strange, but it sort of clues me into something. If you haven't seen the Jeffrey Epstein video, there's the area down the center of the face is called the river of life. We want to pay attention to this line. If we find shadows on that line, if we find indentations, really deeply carved marks, weird lines that show up, or discolorations, we really want to pay attention, because this area, if we see dark crevices, lines, or shadows showing up along that, face reading theory says that your jing, your constitutional strength, there's a conflict in how that energy is being expressed. That can come from lying, that can come from deceit, that can come from violent acts, that can come from screwing people over, doing deplorable and bad things, whether it's lying or taking advantage or things like murder. Something really bad. The life force is not expressing appropriately, and in her inner persona, this shadow shows up. And I find that interesting given what's going on. So that tells me, at least according to face reading theory, something in her jing, her constitutional strength, is not being expressed well. Either she's lying, and maybe she did it, or at the very least, she's not being completely transparent and honest about how she feels about this murder or about the person who died. That would be my guess. And I am not psychic and I'm not making predictions here. But if I'm just using face reading as a lens, as a means to assess, that would be my professional opinion. Something about something about her inner persona and that shadow makes my spider sense tingle a little bit. Her inner persona also looks sad and a little scared. And yes, she's been through hell and back. So maybe that's the mark. Maybe that's what I'm seeing. She's really taken a beating from this. Or, like I said, she's hiding something. So given all of that, in terms of lifestyle remediation for a person like this, I've always said out of principle, if a person was guilty of murder, out of principle, I would not work with the person. But if I were working with her and, I didn't know anything, I would say this is the type of person with these strong wood energetics. They need a certain level of intensity in their life. They're going to need very robust physical exercise just to regulate that wood. And if we look at the 5-element cycle, the preceding element is water. Water nourishes wood. And then after that would be fire. Fire is the one that would drain out the wood. So I would think, for her, because her wood is pretty intense, those big eyes, strong jaw, strong eyebrows, and she's got fire features, but doesn't express the fire well, I would want to put her into the fire lifestyle themes, which are social activity, laughter, joy, dinner parties, those types of things, to really carve those wrinkles in to make her wood energy a bit more subtle. With the wrinkles and trust lines and joy lines around the eyes, I think her life train would go a bit better. So I would be pushing her into that. And I would also be asking questions about water rhythms, things that we can do in case the wood is actually truly deficient. And you really don't know that until you start talking to a person and you probe into a little bit about them. Like, what are your lifestyle rhythms like? But I would be looking at water rhythms, things that about slowing down, being still, being a bit more stoic, I would be finding out, how those rhythms relate to her. But the big one I would say is fundamentally, because she's got this high intensity face, she's going to need high intensity things in her life that she engages in simply to regulate her life force. And, from there, I would build out other things around diet and movement and interpersonal things. But those are the big ones that I would touch on first. So in any case, if you guys have questions, let me know. And if there's someone else you'd like me to read, let me know. Thanks.